Now, I've never played a real Super Reverb before. When by real, I mean with valves in it. But I think it's quite telling about this Tone Master amp that playing it really makes me want to play a valve Super Reverb, to maybe own a vintage one day. And I mean that in the best possible sense. This feels like such a true representation of what I've heard from Super Reverbs that honestly it's quite mind-blowing. And if you put it into perspective, this costs £1,100 or £1,200, probably the same in dollars. If you compare it to other amps in the market at that price point that I've tried, you definitely get a hell of a lot for your money here. Now, there are going to be negatives to it. There are going to be lots of positives to it. That's going to be in my full review. It's safe to say, to give you a little sneak peek, I don't think the reverb's up to all that much in reality. And the attenuator, yeah, we'll get into real detail with that, because I think one reason you might buy this amp is to keep quiet, to get great Super Reverb tones at a lower volume. Let's find out if that's really something you can do in a couple of weeks when I do a review. But I plugged this thing in yesterday when I got it. I didn't get a chance to record my first impression, but I played it now for a couple of hours, so I've got some ideas in my head. Well, I hope you heard in the beginning there, it does have that real super reverby sound. You can do those beautiful, very bell-like rounded Strat tones that are so Strat and Fender amp sounding. That's really what I expect from an amp like this. It really does pretty much feel like a real amp. Now, if I was side by side with another amp, with a valve amp, then probably you could tell the difference. Certainly when I plugged into my 2-Rock Classic Reverb later in the same day yesterday that I managed to play the Super Reverb, it was very different. But funnily enough, the sound, which is, I guess, the important bit, I mean, the player's satisfaction is quite important, but the inspiration is very important as well. But the sound is obviously the most important thing here. And, you know, in terms of utility, and for people who go around gigging with taking their amp with them, this could be such a fantastic opportunity for them to get an amp that is either out of their price bracket, or too heavy, or too loud, or difficult to get hold of, or temperamental, or any of the above. Now, what I thought would be fun for the rest of this video, as I said, it's first impressions, is we're going to plug in 2 or 3 of my favourite pedals, do a little demo on each one, and have a little chat about the amp as we go along. You'll see at the beginning I have it on volume number 7. I'm lucky that I get to play loud in my own home. I think I'll try and turn it down to demonstrate, you know, all the different sounds when I do the full review. So I'm going to keep it to whatever volume that sounds best to me in the room here today, and hopefully you'll get the best sound out of the amp. But we will go through all of those different sort of things when I do the full review. So let's go and plug in a Germanium fuzz. I think we'll go for the Kingtone GE. Let's roll it back, as they say, get some fantastic, hopefully fantastic tones out of it. I want to see, I haven't actually plugged a fuzz into this amp, so this will be the first time I do that. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so the pedals I'm using today are the Greer Ghetto Stomp, which is a pretty transparent, low-ish, maybe low-medium gain pedal. And then I'm also using the Kingtone Mini Fuzz GE. Now I'm going to start with what I thought was the more successful demo here, and this was the Les Paul. I'm going to show you what it sounds like just with the amp and then with both pedals together. I'd played around for about half an hour before with the Strat, and it took me time, this is literally the first time I plugged pedals into the amp, to figure out maybe what the best setting could be, and then I got onto the Les Paul right at the end, and I thought it sounded pretty good. I'll talk about some of the harder things I found with the pedals after we've listened to this. Now I thought it came across pretty well with the Les Paul there. The King Tone GE comes through just in that sort of raspiness you get at the upper end. That's how I like to play with a fuzz generally, which is where it's not that huge sort of dark, smooth tone. It's more of the rolled back, slightly raspy, slightly bright, slightly glassier tone, and I think it just manages to get there. It was much harder to dial in than with any of the valve amps I've tried to play with. It reminded me more of a small combo amp, funnily enough. And I tried to play earlier with a lower volume on the amp. The pedals just didn't play nice with that. I tried playing at volume 5, which I'll show you with the Strat in a minute. And it wasn't until I'd kicked it up a bit. You know, with fuzzes anyway, they need the amp to be slightly driving a little bit more. So it wasn't just a case of plug and play, which with the 2 Rocks, with pretty much every amp I've ever used on the channel, and all of these really high quality pedals, you can use almost every setting with every amp and it always does something interesting and good. Not so the case here, I found so far in just this half an hour that I've done so far with the pedals. There were some weirdnesses that just don't happen with valve amps. It just didn't want to play nicely. So that's a bit of a concern, I'd say. But I think more interesting in future will be to figure out how to use it, not just to bash it for not working, because to be honest, some amps I've used in the past that were slightly cheaper valve amps have also had issues with some pedals, you know, whether it's just with too much noise or whatever that may be. So overall, I was pretty happy with this. You know, I can't always just compare it to like top-end boutique amps. You've got to compare it within the bracket that it's in, and considering it's basically a computer in a box with 4 very nice Jensen speakers, it's quite remarkable, and I'd probably be happy to use it live, you know, in that sense that once I know how to dial it in. Right, let's go through with the Strat a little bit and maybe see some of the trouble I had. Okay, so what you're going to hear with this Strat to begin with is when the amp was on 5, and I was having some issues with this basically in the sense that it just wasn't reacting to me like a normal amp, and there's something about the volume pot on this Super Reverb I've already sort of seen There's quite an abrupt change. About 5, it's still not very lively, and then at 6, it's suddenly very lively. And maybe that's just the way Super Reverbs were, and so that's the way it should be. I might need to do a bit of research on that. But at 5, the pedal wasn't that much fun to play, really. I think I got some okay sounds out of it. To begin with, I had the fuzz set too high, so let's just hear that for a few seconds. So when the fuzz was set too high, there wasn't a lot of rollback on the guitar. It just went from really fuzzy to nothing. Didn't play that well with the amp. And then in this coming clip, the fuzz is rolled back a lot more. The volume on the fuzz pedal is still doing something, still pushing. It's high enough to do that. So I think this is probably, when the amp is quieter, this is probably pretty good. A pretty good fuzz sound to get with it. Is, you know, obviously I've got a lot more playing around to do over the coming weeks. But I'd be reasonably happy to use the sound like this. Okay, now we're going to get the overdrive pedal, the Greer Ghetto Stomp, which is a lovely little pedal, pretty transparent, has some nice little harmonics to it. Doesn't do anything too dramatic, but let's hear it first again when the amp was on 5, and then we'll hear it when the amp was pushed up quite a bit more. I think when the amp was on 5, it was okay with that pedal. It wasn't that inspirational, to be honest with you. It was fine, a nice, relatively clean to edge of breakup sound. When the amp was pushed up and used the pedal, though, it was a lot more fun to play. Now, throughout this whole demo, I'm not playing with a sense of abandon. It's not one of my most musical moments, I feel like, because I was really trying to think, how does this compare to a normal tube amp? How would this react with a tube amp? What do I need to do to make this better? because I wasn't loving it to begin with. As I got to dial it in a bit more, turn the amp up, change the pedals around a little bit, I started to enjoy it more. I still thought to myself, this doesn't feel as good as with a tube amp. There is something missing here. So let's hear a bit of both pedals together, which I think is the best it sounded. So maybe it needed the overdrive pedal to give the specific tone and a bit of oomph and a bit of that edge of breakup, and then the fuzz gives it that warm fuzziness, obviously fuzz, a bit of more glassiness and that double stop breakup sound. So let's hear that for a second. I think with the Strat, that was my favourite tone that I got this time. The OD and the fuzz together, it just seemed to sort of hold everything together a bit better. Now, my suspicion is that it's not going to hold together that well for really heavy fuzz playing, this amp. But on the other hand, I'm not sure that original Super Reverbs did either. So that's something I want to explore more about and think more about. So what are my first impressions, really? Well, first of all, blimey, it's pretty good, isn't it, really? I mean, for this sort of money, I think it fits in well in that bracket. In fact, if anything, it's probably pretty good value, considering we haven't even talked about the fact that you can record straight out, that it's got different IRs in there, that we haven't even played with the tremolo. It's a big, beautiful amp. It's got lots of clean headroom. It can offer so much to a lot of people. Whether it's going to be the best pedal platform that you could buy at this money, we're going to find out with some in-depth videos in future. Safe to say I'm happy I bought it. I think it's an interesting experiment. I think one that has a big future. They can get this better and better and better. What I would be interested to see is firmware updates where maybe they took very specific vintage Super Reverbs, maybe 3 or 4 fantastic ones with slightly different characters, because these probably rolled off the line with different potentiometers and all these things in them, giving it a different character. So I'd be really interested if there was a way of updating it so you could choose between 3 or 4. Obviously you'd have to plug it in between each time because it doesn't have an inbuilt way of choosing that. We're going to see if the attenuator is any good. So far, no, I'm not going to say anything. Right. So I'm quite happy. If it's an amp you're thinking about, I would definitely, I'd be happy if you subscribe to the channel so that you can watch some of the future videos I'm going to make about it. We're really going to do a deep dive over a 3 or 4 video series, most likely, with a few different setups and see what we can do. But my first impression is that I am impressed. I'm not blown away. It's difficult now. I've had access to some incredible amps. Big, beautiful valve amps. So getting my head around playing this in the first place has been a bit of a thing. But I'm really happy I've done it, because there's no point being a valve snob if there are good options out there that are going to help people because of weight, because of price, because of all sorts of reasons. I just want to do a quick update on the next giveaway. The next giveaway will be when I hit 5,000 subs. Thank you everyone who's subscribed so far. This is a lot of fun for me and I really enjoy it, and I hope that comes across to you. So I'm about to send off the pedal to Raphael, who won the last pedal, the Cherrytone Horsebreaker. Now, this is a bit embarrassing, but I emailed a company that I love one of their pedals, or a lot of their pedals, but one of their pedals in particular, and I asked them, is there any chance they could sponsor me to give away one of their pedals? And I wasn't expecting them to say yes, and they haven't. They haven't responded to me. So despite the fact they actually use one of my videos on their website to demo their pedal without asking me, but I take that as a compliment. I'm just a bit disappointed that they haven't responded to me. Not that I'm going to name and shame or anything like that. It's not a shame. It's their decision. I wish they'd got back to me and with a positive answer. I am looking for someone to sponsor in that sense, because I think ultimately any channel has to go down some sort of direction of reaching out to people to get best access. But I will never compromise the way I do things. Now, my job isn't to completely wreck a pedal or to completely blow smoke up its arse. It's to just give a realistic depiction and give my opinions. So in future, if I ever do manage to get anyone to send me a pedal or let me give away one of their pedals, I'll only do it if I absolutely love the pedal, or I'll be honest about it. So it may well be that no one's going to let me use one of their pedals. We'll find out. But I just wanted to let you know that's what I haven't released the next giveaway, but it definitely will be at 5,000 subs. It will definitely be something that's even better than the last pedal. And all you have to do is subscribe publicly. Some people didn't subscribe publicly to the last one, and I try to make it as clear as possible. Go into your settings or ask me how you do it and change your subscription to public. It's the only way I can know that you subscribed, is if it's public. And then leave a comment on this video or a future video before I hit 5,000 subs, and you'll be in anywhere in the world. I'll send the pedal, and I think it's going to be a great one. But I just haven't narrowed it down yet. If you've got any ideas for what you'd like to have a chance to win, then put that down in the comments. But otherwise, let's just play out still the Strat with both pedals. It's nothing much here, just me still trying to figure out how things work just for a minute or so. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.